What is this about? Oh, it's just some bullshit. Oh, that's nice. That came on right as the live stream kicked off. I like it. Let's put that phone in do not disturb mode. Let's mute this tab here. There we go. And minimize this a little bit so I'm not looking too much directly at me, but now I can see the comments, so that's nice. What's up, everyone? Oh, I have to click OK on Zoom now. If you're live streaming, Zoom requires your consent. I guess that makes sense. I don't have my big mic set up because we're doing interview style today, and that thing tends to take up some energetic space, so I don't want that. Got some sexy blue lighting for y'all, though. This is Motown mode. I believe that's the setting I've... Oh, actually, I think I might have... Let's just check really quickly. This is something just for the live stream audience. The people on the podcast are like, man, I'm missing out. Or they're like, this guy's obnoxious, skip forward 30 seconds. One of the two. Here's Motown mode. Ooh, different blue. Arctic Aura. Morning Calls, little orange. Forest Adventure. And let's do one more. Nebula. Ooh, purple. I think that Forest Adventure is what's up. It's like we're going through a forest together. I've already poured the tea, so you won't hear the live tea pour, but I've got it here and I'm going to have a sip. I'll slurp it so we can all hear it in the mic. Ooh, lovely, lovely decaffeinated Earl Grey. All right, well, here we are at the end of another week. It's Friday. I'm going to do some live coaching, but first I'm going to share what's been going on for me. There is those things that have been going on for me. The first is I'm really present to how my life has kind of been, what would I say, like reiterating for me that a breakthrough only happens succeeding, like following the heels of a breakdown. And the way that this works, like the fantasy we have is sort of like, no, if you just like want something and you put your attention on something, then you can create a breakthrough. What we don't realize is that our lives are an active structure and argument, metaphorically speaking, like an ongoing argument for why not have a breakthrough. What that means is that like my life is ongoing evidence for why my life has to be the way my life has to be, including all of the stories I have about like how life goes and how life doesn't go and how it's appropriate to be and how it's inappropriate to be. My life is one big, long, historical and ever-present argument for why that's the way life is. And a breakthrough is outside of all of that. So we're not just gonna like go about our day and suddenly be like, whoa, suddenly I have a brand new story about the way to show up and like can see things in an entirely different light. That's not the way it works. More often than not, what happens is we go from our argument about how life has to be, and then we switch all the way to the other opposite side of it, and we confuse that thinking that's a breakthrough. What that actually is doing is going from one end of the box you're in to the other end of the box. Or the metaphor I like to use is imagine a wagon rut. And our beliefs about how life is, our beliefs about ourselves, about the appropriate way to be, all of that stuff creates a wagon rut. And in that wagon rut, you can go forward or backwards. And so most of us on some level we're in wagon ruts and we're going like forward. So forward might be like the right way to be is to be super generous and to make sure that everyone feels okay and feels good before you feed yourself, so to speak, before you take on yourself. So that's like my forward direction of the wagon rut. And then after enough time, I say, God damn it, I'm pissed off and I'm tired of this. And people just take and take and take and take. And it never seems to work out for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to serve myself for the first time ever. And at first that will feel like a breakthrough because it's different. It'll feel novel and new, and like there'll be a bit of a different impact in the world around me. But all I'm actually doing is going in the other direction in the same wagon rut. In this wagon rut, there's sort of like two paths. One is everyone gets and I don't, and the other path is I get and fuck everyone else. So we could make that even more succinct. Everyone gets stuff and fuck me, or I get stuff and fuck them. And those are just the same place we're stuck. So breakthroughs don't just happen. We have to have a breakdown, a fundamental point where our life stops working along the lines that it's been working. And so one example of that in my life lately, I think I'd shared about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, we got a $68,000 tax bill recently. And this was not from um, sort of obliviousness on our part. We like pay taxes. I'm very conservative about paying taxes. But what happened was there was a way that we were kind of running our finances and moving money from our corporation to ourselves that led to basically this buildup. And it kept getting kicked down the road to the next year, the next year. We weren't really aware of that. And frankly, probably if I'm honest, like not really interested in being aware of that. And so as we switched over to this new approach, we have to reconcile. Of course, what we could do is keep kicking that down the road, but that's not what we want to do. And so where it left us was like, holy crap, we got to shore up our finances. And what that led to was us, Bay and I, setting up a system where we get together every week. We sit down with our bank accounts. We look at everything. We make sure we're on the same page. Then we built a budget and we check like, how are we doing as far as this budgeting is concerned? And that's been a tremendous breakthrough for us. Up till this point, the way it worked in our house was like, I tracked money. Bay kind of relied on me for that. And I would resentfully do it like when I was good every single morning, which I hated doing. There was no partnership for us in any of it. And then eventually I would just get sick of doing that. And then we would revert back to the old way. And what we did, we learned to make enough money that could sort of thrive. You know, we would make enough money that worked for the lifestyle we were living. The downside was we were never really accumulating. We weren't like really building wealth or like saving money for our retirement or any of that sort of stuff. It was sort of like flat. And so what we're doing is moving beyond that now. And like, thank goodness for that breakdown. You know, it's really created something really beautiful for us. So that's the first thing that I've been really present to. Let's have a sip of tea to commemorate that together. Rub the bridge of my nose. I need glasses now, everyone. I've become farsighted. It's hard for me to see close to my face. And it happened, boom, right like at my 44th year of living on this planet. Suddenly I was like, wow, I went to cut my nails and I couldn't see anything. So I got to wear glasses, at least to read and stuff. Fortunately, they look great. So we're all good. The second thing that has been present for me this week has been I was cruising on social media, Twitter, and someone had quoted someone else's post, and someone else's the quoted post was someone talking about like, how do people deal with boredom when they become in their 40s? Like everything's boring. And this person was just listening, like my family, boring, my work, boring, this is boring, that's boring, everything's boring. It's boring. And this person had quoted this post, and then they had said like, if life is boring, you're boring. So it's just sort of like a put you in your place, you know, harsh reality kind of thing. And then they were like, honestly, this person could benefit from like some therapy or some work. And like they're so lazy in this post, they come off as arrogant. And so I was just sitting there reflecting on how quick we are to label something like this with our particular judgments. So like the reason this person is writing this way is because they are arrogant and or lazy is like the first thing. And what this person labeling this other person is unaware of is that they are triggered by this person sharing their experience of boredom. And the way their trigger shows up, the way it kind of gets handled is like judgment and like you're lazy or arrogant if you feel this way and write this way and have this experience. And what that does is it makes it very hard for someone to change. It makes it very hard for someone to like unfold. Life becomes bigger and deeper and more powerful and more heartfelt for us when we can unfold, like a flower blossoming, when we can open to the light and the darkness and the rain and all of that stuff. But what happens is this person's got some fear, some survival strategy they've created that leads to them having an experience of boredom. It's very easy for me to have compassion for this person because this has been my game. Like through life, what I learned to do was be afraid of that which was unknown, because down the path of the unknown, I had no trust, and I might end up hurt or disappointed or let down, or like being with stuff that I had no capacity yet to be with. And so what I did was, rather than be with the unknown, I would figure everything out with my brain. So I would have everything predictable. I would derive everything. I would predict everything. Sort of like this beautiful mind, kind of like world of flowcharts. And what that did was it made life very knowable. And the payoff of that was that there was no danger. There was not a lot of risk for me because everything was known. I could predict how it was going to go. If I say this in the conversation, you'll likely do that. And then I'll do that. And then that. And then, okay, we'll be okay. We'll still be friends. Great. I'll say this. And then you say exactly what I thought. And then I'll say exactly what I predicted you would say. And then blah, blah, blah. So it's the payoff is like we get to not have to be with our fears. We get to be a bit safe. The downside is that we become bored because we're living a life that's entirely predictable, because that's what allows us to stay safe from our fear. And so where I found myself was living a life that was incredibly boring. But I wasn't doing it out of arrogance. I wasn't doing it out of like frustration or laziness. In fact, it was a very industrious thing that I'd done. It took a lot for me to like, get as far as doing that. So as soon as this person puts this label, lazy, arrogant, on it, a couple of things are going to happen. One, if I'm the person that's bored, if he's labeling me this way, there's no capacity for me to share any further. I'm going to close down even tighter. Two, let's imagine that this person over here wants to like support someone to better open. And I'm imagining that that's their desire, given they're saying this person would be better off suited with therapy or something. Like my sense is that ultimately they're hoping this person could open more. They don't realize that the impact they're having is basically, it's almost like wrapping tape around this person's closure. As soon as you call them lazy or arrogant, you don't look below the surface at any of these layers that are going on. And when we can't see below the surface, the layers that are going on, all we are left with is what's happening on the surface. And then all we are left with ultimately is our judgment of what's happening on the surface. And we can't heal from that place. This person is held under the thumb of this person's judgment that they're lazy or arrogant. So this little example that I'm talking about, you can see this writ large across the world. You can see this in how politics becomes such a clusterfuck, because there's not a lot of depth of appreciation or understanding or compassion. There's a response and reaction to the surface. You can see this in cancel culture, where there's this immediate reaction and then a shutting down of our listening, an inability to be with someone longer so that we can get down to the nuance of the humanity that lies beneath and actually meet them in that and support their healing. And the really bad news is if we want to heal ourselves, we have to be willing to like help other people heal. Like if I'm sort of like, I'm healing, but you fucks are all stuck and lazy and arrogant, I'm not really going to be able to heal this part of myself, because I'm not going to be able to see me over there in them. So really present this week to the impact of our labels and how they just basically stop us going any deeper with someone, and then the opportunity to like allow any transformation to take place, well, it's kind of dead. It's tough. Okay, I'm gonna itch my shoulder. Oh, there's a pimple on my shoulder. You ever have like an itch and then you scratch and you're like, there's a new blemish there. I'm a little bit uglier in that part of my body for the next 5 days. And then my shoulder will be gorgeous, like it always is. Just beautiful. Okay. We'll bring Mike on in a sec. Before I do, I'll just share Mike had reached out when I put up a post saying like, hey, who'd like to come on the show and do some live coaching? Mike was one of the people, and my assistant takes those names and she puts them on my calendar, and then come time, I like, all right, who is this person that I'm meeting with? How did they come across my desk? And Mike, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know this guy. And so it turns out he and I had met maybe 6-7 years ago at an event when I was working with a man named Rich Litvin. I'm one of the co-authors of The Prosperous Coach. He's doing a lot of work in his community. And then Mike had joined accomplishment coaching, the program that I led for about 5 years and did a lot of my early training in. And so it was kind of a neat blast from the past to have Mike show back up. So Mike, why don't you put your camera on, take your mic off mute. Sup? Oh, look at that nice slow fade in. That was very
Hey,
cinematic.
hey, Mike and the mic.
What have you seen Dune 2 yet, Mike?
I have not. I don't
Have you
know
seen Dune
what that
1?
is.
Oh my
No, I don't know what
goodness.
it is.
You were sharing with me that you're living in Mexico. Perhaps this is why. Down Mexico way, you guys aren't as plugged into the pop culture of North America.
I try to be plugged into TV and movies and a lot of other things as least as possible.
Uh-huh. Do you say as little as possible?
Correct.
Uh-huh. Smart. What do you do for fun? I mean, I know you've got like a very young child, so doing stuff for fun is probably like a neat thing you did way back in the day. But back when you had spare time, what did you do for fun?
Um, so like I said, I'm on the coast of Oaxaca, a small beach town. So I love just going to the beach, being in the water, chilling,
Mm.
hanging out with friends. Speaking of labels, I've labeled myself a workaholic as
Ah,
long as I
yes.
can remember now. And I can't seem to let that one go, regardless of how much or how little I do work.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, I mentioned before we got on the call that I've been swing trading stocks, so that's been a ton of fun for me, and it's becoming kind of an addiction type thing.
Aha. Yeah, I know that well. So you're tend like with your spare time, you'll tend to pour it into like whatever you're working on. That's where it tends to
Correct.
go. Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I spend a lot of time on that or responsibilities, and we'll get to my topic, which I guess I'll just throw it out there right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
is what I was looking to have conversation on and dive deeper in that really I think is heart centered to me getting everything else I want is one, talking through my thoughts and feelings with my partner naturally and consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And also, um, I don't know if it's the same or different, but just hanging out with friends. And
Mm.
both of those, uh, it has gotten to the point where it affects me so much that when I do those things, I have less back pains or no back pains. I'll have less headaches. I feel more energized, and life is just so much better. But yet, I'm so apparently resistant to those things. But the first one, talking about my thoughts and feelings, is weird because I'm a complete open book. And if you ask me, I'll pretty much say anything. And shit, I'm here on a live, willing to talk about my thoughts and feelings.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, cool. Well, you brought it, so let's dive in. Um, you'll hear me type as I take some notes, so that's what I'm doing if you hear that. I think that's all that I want to say as like a starting point. So so there's talking about your thoughts and feelings with your partner, there's hanging out with friends, like which and then you said like they might be connected. So does it feel like one of those two paths is the place to start, or first to get clear on how they're connected and then start there? Or does it feel like there's an even different path for us to begin on?
I think it's more the thoughts and feelings. And I don't know if there's like a time context in there or what the case is. But yeah, the thoughts and feelings is the biggest thing.
Got it. With your partner.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Great. Okay. Okay. And so like I get the concept of sharing thoughts and feelings with your partner. Where do you want to end up? Like by virtue of this conversation and ultimately in your life as far as your sharing your thoughts and feelings with your partner is concerned.
Um, I mean, I feel like anything that moves the needle forward, which funny enough, I talk about my feelings, but describe them in an action sense, which isn't a feeling. um, um, And I had another thought, but I lost it.
Okay. Well, so you said like you want to like any result that moves the needle would be good, right? What would be moving, like what would move the needle for you? So like I could imagine like, oh, Mike just blurts his feelings out loud, random intervals, 30 seconds throughout the day is probably not what you're looking for. So like how would we know that this was something that did move the needle? Like what would you want to be moving the needle towards?
Well, another thought is like getting some awareness of like what's actually holding me back or why. But to notice what's moving the needle forward or to measure that, um, it's hard to stay in this moment in the conversation. And this is where I always struggle with coaching. But, anyways, um, like to once a day just say my actual feeling of the day or what's going on in my mind and communicate that with my partner would be huge.
Got it. What you said, it's hard to stay in this moment. Like, how come? What was showing up for you there?
Um, well, it's just like we won't know that I actually accomplished that until the day goes on or a week goes by that I'm actually got that result.
And so what about that makes it hard for you to like speak it into the space?
Just far as a measuring standpoint and us getting a result here, I think is what I was getting at,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I'm
no, I
getting
understand.
lost.
Yeah, you're doing totally fine. I'm just curious, like, so basically what's happening is we're getting clear, like, what would be a win, right? Because
Yeah,
there's like a million different, I know what it looks like what I want when it comes to sharing my feelings with my partner, but I don't know what that means for you. I get the sense, like the general idea.
right,
It sounds like you have a general idea, but my experience is for a lot of us, we don't dial that in too much focus. And so we're in the process of like dialing that in. And the first stage to getting anything we want is being able to ask for it, right?
right,
And so that's kind of what we're doing right now in this moment is like having you ask for what you want. And I heard you say like, oh, it's kind of hard. I'm having a hard time staying in this moment. And so I'm just like, where my curiosity is like, oh, what are you finding hard? Like, can you put some words to that just so that we don't step over it?
right. Um, I just find it hard to take the action, and when I get feelings that are anything less than good or great, which, good and great feelings are, I would say, easy to share, but anything less than that,
Uh-huh.
I don't like to stay in negative places for a long time, and I'm very solution oriented.
Mm,
Um, I would also say I've had a bit of time in the past in the Tony Robbins world, which I feel like is a lot of focus on the positive. But yeah, I'm very solution based. And so, yeah, I like to kind of push aside, step over, get past any negative very quickly and not let
mm,
things last. But I
mm,
think anybody knows that um, when we have negative experiences, feelings, breakdowns, stress, what have you, they don't always just going away in a moment just because we have a positive thought or a solution. Um, Things come back up or they get pushed under the rug, but the dirt's still there.
mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so like if I've got this right, what ultimately you want to be able to do is just to like start to share more how you're feeling, regardless of how you're feeling. once a day as an example. It's not the all be all and end all. It's not like if I did that, everything would be perfect, but that's kind of
Right.
like that would be moving the needle for you. You would be more expressed with your partner, sharing more of your truth. Is that right?
Yeah. And another thought, and I don't know if this is going to get more confusing or off track or on
Put them
track,
in.
but I feel like there's almost a piece of it of being present in the moment. And not that I like I'm there, I'm a great listener, I'm very receptive. I'll ask questions, I'll talk, like I'll be there with you, with anyone, my partner, otherwise. Um, but if I got my own stuff going on, and like I'm not sharing that, communicating that, I feel like there's a breakdown in being present when I'm with somebody like my partner.
Mm, right. Yeah, makes sense. Sort of like if I'm with my partner, but then I'm actively managing something else, such as a feeling, it's almost as though the same as if I'm actively unloading the dishwasher. Like my attention is split. I'm not fully present.
Yeah,
Am I on the right page?
right, exactly.
Okay. Okay, got it. So part of the like being able to say what's on your mind, to express that feeling, to share it would lead to you being a little more present. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
All right. Okay, cool. So we'll use that as the metric to like move towards. And I'm clear it's not the only thing or whatever, but it would be moving the needle. Is that accurate? Okay,
I'd say
cool.
that's accurate. Best I can come up with in the moment.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, we'll work with it. And if it changes in the moment, that's okay too. So
Cool.
we iterate. So, okay, so then you want to share, like as an example, share how you're feeling in the moment once a day, whatever. And I'm hearing you say you've got resistance to doing so. Is that right?
Based on my actions, yes.
Uh-huh.
Logically, no. Like I know my partner is very receptive, willing to listen, is not gonna like scold me or put me down, or no matter what feelings and thoughts are going on. Um, yes, I'm resistant based upon my actual actions and results, but logically, like I'm not resistant. Like I said, I'm here, and even when I have conversations with anybody and everybody, I'm a pretty open book and willing to share.
Hmm.
So it's
So,
interesting with my partner, the person that I'm closest to, that I have a 4.5 year relationship with, intimate relationship with, and that I have a baby with, that it seems that I have so much trouble sharing my thoughts and feelings with her consistently. But when I have conversations with others, um, things can easily come out.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, it makes sense to me. Like the closer we are to someone, the more the stakes are there. Like that's a higher level of stakes, whereas
Valid.
it's why, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying valid. I agree. And again, in my experiences, like she's a great listener. She's great responding for the most part. Um, she
Hmm.
doesn't respond in a negative way ever. She doesn't always respond in the way that I would like her to respond. Um, but yeah,
Okay. So intellectually, you can kind of like, hey, there's no reason for me to be afraid or to be resistant or whatever. But
or
in
not do
terms
it.
of, but in terms of like what's real, if we could call it that, is like, but you are. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
great. Okay. And so you mentioned like being more present. Like if you were able to do this, why else would you want to share, like be able to share your feelings more freely with your partner? What else would be available if you could do that?
There's just more connection. It's more intimacy. Um, yeah, like I want that connection. I want that intimacy. I referenced her as my best friend. Um, and so, yeah, like those things are important.
Hmm. Okay. More connection, more intimacy between the two of you, and then
Yeah.
more presence as well. Got it. Excuse me. Okay. So intellectually, you understand there's no reason not to do this, but there's something that stops you nonetheless. So what do you think that, like, well, let me lay a bit of context. In my experience, that's always the way it is with our fear, is that like we try to like rationally explain away why like there's no reason at all for me to be afraid in the hopes that that will make our fear fuck right off. Well, it doesn't work that way because our fear tends to be a little more irrational. So we can be as rational as we want, but our fear is like, I don't care. That's not the world I operate in.
Mhm.
So my invitation would be for now to set aside what you logically know so that we can get to know, like, get to be with this part of you that doesn't care about that and explore that a little bit further because that's the part that's stopping you. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Hmm. I can help if you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what that means is like, yep, you logically know that there's no reason you have to be afraid, and that's all fine and good, but it doesn't matter that that's true. So for now, the temptation might be as we explore this to keep telling yourself like, but I logically know that that's not true, or but I intellectually understand that that's not the case. And I'm inviting you to just let go of that for the next 45 minutes so that we can just look at like, yeah, but what's the fear telling you? Cool.
Okay.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Believe so.
Cool. Okay. So what does the fear tell you? Like, hey, it's not a good idea to do this. Here's why not. What are the reasons for why not share these feelings?
I'm not sure if I'm going to go into a little bit more logic and a last piece of logic that I have to
It's
get
okay.
out, or if I'm going to run the direction that we intend on going. But um, like one of the things that I've come up with before is, you know, I love my partner so much that I don't want to be a burden or put any more stress on her, as like she works incredibly hard, does an incredible amount of stuff for us, and I forget that I do that too, and she reminds me, and vice versa. But anyways, it's like the fear of being a burden on her, or taking up space or taking away space from her, where she could be talking about her thoughts and feelings or her day or things that are going on. Then, like, I feel better about doing that and being there and present for her in those ways. Um, but again, going back to me not taking up space and voicing things where I clear up stuff for me, to where I can be more present.
I was with you up until you said going back to, and then it didn't sound like a fully formed thought there. So going back to that, it was their conclusion.
Going back to me not talking about my thoughts or feelings, like I try to give everything to her, and then that leaves no space for me to talk about my own thoughts and feelings or things that are going on,
Hmm.
for me to clear up anything.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So some of the things I heard you say are like, you don't want to be a burden or put any stress on her. So like if you share this, it'll be a burden. Or if you share this, it'll create stress for her. Um, it'll take away space from her, your partner. You won't be present for her. and it's important to give all the space to her, and or there's no space for you. Anything I missed there?
No, not at
Okay.
all. And then it's hard not to go back to logic, but logically, like that's not true, because it's more of a burden on her when I'm not talking about my thoughts and feelings, and like she can see stuff going on, or that I'm not fully present in my mind somewhere else, or I'm stressed or bummed or whatever about other things, but stepping over it. So it's kind of like an oxymoron. Like by me not doing it is affecting her more than if I actually did the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the place I find like everyone is stuck. Like literally everyone, where we intellectually know like some truth, but there is like a deeper part of ourselves, maybe more primal, that is like, I don't fucking care about that truth because this is scarier. There's like a deeper edginess here than that intellectual truth is sufficient to get us over. So what else would you say, like what would be the risks of like sharing yourself in this way? We've got that it'll put burden, stress on her, it'll take away space from her, you won't be present for her. What are some of the risks to you? Some of the things you might have to face if you did this more?
Maybe that I actually have to feel the pain of the problem,
Mm,
or I have to admit something's not going well.
mm, hmm.
And again, I'm very quick to be solution oriented and to say, okay, I can fix this. And so maybe there's a fear of me not being able to fix the problem or come up with the solution.
Uh-huh. Sort of like that feeling might stay.
Mm-hmm. And I could be very stubborn, and I don't like to give up. Uh, as I mentioned before the call started, I was working on building a coaching business for 5 years. Um, then I should have realized much earlier on, and I was a little kind of forced to give that up. Um, and until like 6 months after that, or a few months after that, I didn't realize that it wasn't the best place for me to be.
Mm, hmm. Got it. So down this path, there's like all of the stuff that might happen to your partner, and then the stuff that might happen to you. There, you might have to actually feel this stuff. You might have to feel bad. You might have to feel pain. You'll have to admit something's not going well. You might have to like kind of let that be. You won't be able to necessarily fix or make it go away. This feeling might stay. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I might have to admit that either it's not the best thing for me, I can't do it, or I can't do it alone and I need help. And maybe
Aha.
there's a feeling of like feeling less than
Aha.
in there.
Got it. Okay. Well, that makes a fucking ton of sense. Those
that
are
that does.
those are pretty, you're doing great work, Mike. So those are like pretty good reasons, I would say, to not share this stuff. Like to try to, compress it into like a neutron star, so to speak. Brr. Okay. So it's fairly dense.
Mm-hmm.
Density. Okay, so we've got like at this point like a bunch of like the beliefs about this. Like if I share, then I'll be a burden. If I share, this thing might stay with me. If I share, I might feel less than, et cetera, et cetera. How are you doing in this moment?
I'm doing all right. I'm really wrapping my head around the last part of that. And really thinking heavily on the not being able to accomplish something on my own.
Mm.
Yes, I'm staying stuck to that area right there.
Can you share more about like what that drives up?
What just came to the back of my mind is so I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've had three entrepreneurial adventures that none of them really worked out, financially speaking. Um, my parents are very much different and have never been a fan of my entrepreneurial adventures, as well as we could probably put my brother in that camp as well. And they've always been more or less against them. I think there's always been a strong urge, a piece of a strong urge to accomplish and be like, F you, I can do this. Like, hey, I did it. You said I couldn't. I can and did. Um,
Like I'll show you, kind of.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Prove you wrong. I'll show you perfect words. Um, and so, yeah, that's a little bit that's coming up in there.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Okay. So what I want to look next with you is like, and just to like lay the groundwork for where we are, we're basically looking at like the thing in the way of you sharing how you feel. And so we're clear where you want to get to. As an example of that, that's like sharing once a day just with your partner, like more free flowing of, an exchange of energy, so to speak. And there's something in the way, and that's what we're looking at. So currently there's like a bunch of beliefs about what it would mean or what would happen or the risks of doing that. So given these beliefs, I want to know what do you do to like deal with these beliefs? So what are the actions you take or don't take in your life to mitigate for or to manage the fact that hey, you'll be a burden. It'll create stress for your partner. It'll take space away from her. You won't be present for her. Like, how do you deal with that?
Um, I think I just ignore it.
Like your feelings?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Yeah, like I just block them out, ignore them, focus on other things. I'm a very kind of like check the box person, uh,
Mm,
and I can have to-do lists for days. Not that I write them out like I did so much in the past, but yeah, there's always something for me to be doing with a never-ending list. And so yeah, it's just moving along.
like get hyper productive, kind of get focused on the stuff to do rather than like have to even see your feelings.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So we've got four things. You ignore them, feel how you're feeling, block out your feelings, focus on other stuff, get hyper productive. What else? What are some other
Yeah.
actions you
Oh,
do to, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, or even just say, fuck it, and just let everything go.
Explain more of what that means to me or what that looks like.
Um, I mean, it could be as much as I said like to stay away from TV and movies. It could be binging out on Netflix or um, hanging out with friends, getting hammered, or
Got it.
just yeah, just letting go and instead of doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing or want to be doing or um, just doing the complete opposite.
Aha, got it. Got it. So kind of like take on something that allows you to distract yourself, like, fuck it, I don't want to feel any of that. I'm just going to do this. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm, what do you do to deal with the fact that, like, if you really let your feelings show up, they might stay? Like, if you got in touch with them, they might not go away.
Can you say that another way?
Yeah. Let's find out. Maybe.
Great
So
answer.
if the cost of like letting these feelings out is that they might stay, they might stick around,
Right.
or that you might have to admit that what's going on isn't the best, you can't do it, or you can't do it alone, like that you need help or whatever. What do you do to deal with that? Because that's an issue, because all of us have all of us have feelings, and like, so here you are with feelings that it's bad to let them out, you can't let them expose. So how do you manage for that?
Manage for that. Well, I think I managed for that by working on a solution, getting hyper productive, whether it's the solution or otherwise,
Hmm.
um, just giving it my all, um, regardless of how much it burns me out. Or
Hmm.
then I get to the point where I might quote unquote explode and then vomit my feelings where I can't hold it in anymore. Um,
Ah,
so it's like that one extreme or the other. I'm not
got
talking
it.
about them at all, or I'm vomiting them out, and then it's just like, holy shit, why haven't you said any of this the last day, week, month, year, whatever? Like
Lifetime.
now this is an overload.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense. And when you say work on solutions, what would, like, when you say that, are you meaning like well, can you just tell me more about that? Give me an example of a solution.
Okay, so the one I don't want to say, especially if she was listening, and that I should have a conversation about, um, we're we live in Mexico. We're on vacation right now. We're visiting my. She's on a working vacation. We're visiting my family outside of Chicago. Um, we got an Airbnb for the first handful of days. Then we're doing a house and pet sitting gig so we can stay here much longer for 10 days, where we don't have to pay the Airbnb fees. We just take care of pets. Um, we signed up for this thing. It's much farther away from my parents than we realized when we committed. These dogs that we're watching need to be let out like 4 times a day. We thought it
Hmm.
was going to be just morning and night, very easy, have more flexibility. We made not the greatest decisions of uh, committing to this place. Um, and so again, I'm stay-at-home dad. I'm not generating income. She is. So when a breakdown like this happens, my mind immediately goes to like, if only I made 10, 20, 30,000 dollars a year, not a substantial income, but something, like we wouldn't have even had to do this house and pet sitting gig. We could have just stayed at an Airbnb for 3 weeks instead of 10 days out of it doing this house and pet sitting gig so far away from my family and friends. I'm very big on taking 100% responsibility and ownership. And I always look at how I'm at fault for everything,
Hmm.
before I try to look at other people. Um, or regardless, I take it all on my own. And so I mentioned I've been working on swing trading stocks and making a little bit of money there. So while we've been at this house and pet sitting gig, like I've been working harder on that goal than normal as like again, if I make more money, this would have fixed the
Mm.
situation. We won't be in this situation. I don't want to be in the situation in the future. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and so all these thoughts, all these things that I'm describing, I've had little thoughts of this, and then I've stepped over it, and I go working a little bit heavier on my stock stuff, and I have not actually communicated any of these feelings to her.
Got it. So there's the feeling, then there's the sort of like this feeling shouldn't be here and it feels bad and I don't want to feel this way. Here's why this feeling is here. And then the focus and energy goes towards like solve the circumstances so that this feeling and this circumstance doesn't show up in the future. Is that about
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Got it. Okay, so attention away from the feeling itself and more to like, let's make sure this never happens ever again.
Yeah.
More or less. Yeah, I'm taking some liberties, but got it. So it sounds like there's attention thought onto like the solution. Is thinking about your feelings like analysis, logical, like thinking about them a part of what you do to deal with them? So not feeling them, to be clear, but thinking about them.
I would say so.
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. Is there any like addendum to that?
Um, I mean, I think there's an element of it, either sadness turns into anger, or anger turns into sadness, and then regardless, I don't want to feel that, so therefore, let's do something about it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. How are you about sharing joy with your partner?
Not the greatest either.
Hmm.
I feel I could be pretty flat,
Hmm.
but the more I talk about my thoughts and feelings, the more I hang out with friends, and doing those things, the less stress I am, the more joyful and enthusiastic or emotional I can be. Uh, and so, like, it's kind of like the snowball effect. The more that I'm sharing my thoughts and feelings and hanging out with friends and the things that I love to do, um, the more those things accentuate and get bigger. And the less of that I do, and the more that I hide my feelings and thoughts and stay away from friends and get more isolated, um, the lower tone, feelings, emotions go, more stress, more judgment,
Yeah.
more dot, dot, dot.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you're describing kind of like the overall arc. You know, the more you share, the better you feel, the more you allow this stuff out. Makes sense. So, but what I heard was like with your partner, even joy kind of gets held close to the chest. And do you have a reason for that? What's the story that has you do that?
Um, I think part of it, or a good part of it, uh, going back to like I mentioned being like a workaholic and what I do for fun and like my swing trading stocks really excites me. And you mentioned earlier that's kind of my next or current entrepreneurial thing that I'm working on.
Hmm.
Um, and after my coaching business, um, she's not the biggest fan of entrepreneurial adventures. The
Mm.
stocks don't excite her.
So if you share your joy, then
There's a fear that if I share my joy there, like not, it's not just that it's not exciting to her, but um, concern of being a waste of my valuable time that I can be putting elsewhere with our child and or other things. Not that I don't do a great job of taking care of our child, but
not that the act of sharing the joy is a waste of the time, but that she will judge you as what you're doing as a waste of your time. Is that accurate?
I mean, so that's accurate. It would be my fear,
Your fear. Yeah, absolutely clear. So,
which I actually have been sharing the stock thing, and she is very aware of this stuff, and I haven't been doing as much of it as I would ideally like, but I've been able to do it enough to where I'm satisfied.
mhm, mhm. But underneath that, I can hear part like another thing, another story, another belief about your feelings is you'll be judged for them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
Depending on
Uh,
the conversation, yeah.
so what do you do given in certain places, depending on the certain conversations, sharing your joy means you'll be judged. What actions do you take or not take as a result of that? Anything we haven't covered?
What actions do I take or not take? Fear that judgment. It's a hard one in this instant, thinking of like the swing trading stocks. One, very quick settle inputs. Um, and two, like I mentioned, I'm tracking myself and looking to make a certain amount and then up leveling that.
But I want to be
And
clear what I'm asking. I'm less asking about the actual action of stocks and stuff. What do you do with the joy that you feel that you don't feel it's safe to express in certain places?
oh, um, just keep it in.
Okay, got it. So it's like another version of pushing it down, compressing those feelings.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to share with you these two like lists we've got so far in the chat that we've got here. Can you see that? Pow. That show up for you?
Yeah.
Excellent. So this is like the beliefs that you've got about this. And I want to be clear, like a lot of these beliefs will always be borne out by evidence. So I'm not saying this is all fabricated or made up, but nevertheless, there are a set of beliefs that you have about like sharing your feelings. And then the second list is labeled here actions you take. And that's the stuff you do as a result of the first list. Like given that, you know, sharing my feelings will be a burden, I'm going to ignore my feelings give or compress them or whatever. That'll make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So given these first two lists, like what's the world you're left in? What is what you get as a result of that, or what is unavailable as a result of that?
First thing that came to mind is sad and alone.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine that. Like kind of lonely. There's no one gets to really be with the full experience of Mike.
Yeah. And even though we're there, we sleep in the same bed, we're in the same house in the same space, or yeah, constantly. Um, yeah, it's still sad and alone or alone.
Hmm. Yeah, super common these days. Like we're proximate, but not intimate. It's like kind of how you could describe our world. Okay, so there's
Hmm.
sadness, loneliness. What else is impossible because of these first two lists?
Um, Partnership, better solutions.
Okay. Can you say more about like those two things? Like how are they impossible?
Well, if I'm not sharing and she doesn't know what's going on, then like takes two to tango. Um,
Mm,
takes
mm,
two people to have a pair or a partnership.
right. Makes sense. And the better solutions part?
Um, yeah, like just ways of thinking about things, like having a different perspective, thought process, seeing things another way, um, and then possibly, therefore, being able to come up with better solutions.
Got it. Okay. What else can you see? You're doing really, really great right now.
I'm not sure I can see anything else, or you might have to repeat the question.
Yeah, well, it might be helpful to look at these lists again and just have a look like, hey, what would be impossible? What else is impossible in my world given these two truths, really, these lists?
I feel like that really covers it, what I said.
Okay. Well, here's some I'm curious about. Like, what about a normal experience and expression of feelings? Does that feel possible given these lists?
I mean, what is normal? I feel like nowadays, today's normals are should not be normal.
Okay. Well, how about a healthy expression of feelings?
And that one I could go with.
Okay. And does
um,
that feel possible or impossible given the list you're looking at?
Given the list I'm looking at, no, that does not feel possible.
Okay. Okay. How about being empowered by your feelings? Like, does that feel possible or impossible?
Uh, Impossible looking at this list.
Okay. I'm just going to give you one more, not give you, I want to offer something for you to check, but like, what about your partner being empowered by you sharing your feelings? Does that feel possible given these lists?
No.
Okay, great. So what are you seeing as we look through this lens?
Um, Seeing a lot of pain and bullshit.
Okay. Sounds like maybe some judgment too.
Sure.
I'm making that up when you use the word bullshit, but I don't have to be right about that. So you tell me when you say bullshit, what does that mean for you?
Um, yeah, like it's just stupid. It's ridiculous. Like it shouldn't be.
Uh-huh.
Again,
Why
going
not?
back to this, going back to this being my best friend, my partner, someone I live with, someone that I have a child with, someone that wants to be there for me, with me, support me mentally, emotionally, um, all the ways, and vice versa. Like, yeah, it's almost like it's silly and ridiculous not to be able to easily share my thoughts and feelings. And like, I don't know, I guess I just let all the different thoughts and actions and circumstances and every excuse get in the way.
So, okay, so fair to say a tiny bit of judgment then about the fact that this is here? Just a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
we'll say a little bit.
yeah. So, anything else show up as we look at this? Any other thoughts? Any other feelings about it?
Um, Anger.
Where's the anger directed?
Um, I mean, at me for being so difficult and,
Hmm.
dare I say, unwilling, as much as
Hmm.
I don't want to be unwilling.
And what's your opinion about that anger?
My opinion is it's valid. It should piss me off. It shouldn't be. There's a lot of truth to it, and it makes sense.
Okay. So you've got space for your anger directed towards yourself, like that you're willing to allow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, great. Nice work. Way to go allowing a feeling. Way to go sharing it in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I feel it in this moment, and like I feel tense, and I'm kind of like playing with my hands, and yeah, it doesn't feel great thinking about all these things.
Hmm. And are you trying to figure out a solution?
Um, mm, Not right now. I'm trying to be in the moment.
Great job. So personally over here, this all makes a lot of sense from like many, many different lenses. Like how were feelings in your family growing up?
Um, I thought about this recently, and probably because our conversation was coming up, but like,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I don't know why, but ever since I've been a little kid, I've typically hid my feelings unless I wanted to use them to my advantage. And then I might talk about them or exacerbate them to get what I want.
Uh-huh.
But typically, I hid my feelings, and like, even if I felt sick, um, or
Uh-huh. So
whatever,
hide
like,
them or use them as a tool to manipulate.
mm-hmm,
Who did you learn that from? Mom or dad?
it's got to be dad.
Uh-huh. Okay. And how was your mom
Well,
about feelings? Yeah.
mom suppressed feelings.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't talk about stuff. Um, Dad probably over voiced things, and doesn't hold back.
Got it. So dad's the one just dumping and your
Yeah,
mom's the one
yeah,
holding it. Uh-huh. Got
yeah.
it. So, and how was that for you as a kid when your dad dumped the feelings on you when you were the receptor of that?
Uh, that's probably where I learned the hiding. Yeah,
Probably, but what was the experience just having like as a kid when you had like your dad dump his emotional content on you? How did that leave you? Did you feel, okay, cool, I got room for this? Like what did it leave you with?
no, it'd probably leave me scared because if anything, it would probably be coming from anger or pissed off. Um, so yeah, he's very easy to express things that he's unsatisfied about.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so
Did it
that
leave you
would
feeling
be the,
stressed?
um, I would say more scared than stressed.
Okay. Got it. Did it leave you feeling with more space or less space for yourself?
Uh, Less. It's almost like shrivel up into a ball, so to speak, and just shrink down. Um,
Hmm. Did it leave you feeling like there was room for you to share your feelings or no?
no,
Okay. So can you see how like from that it would make sense that you would create the story about feelings that you have?
yeah,
Is there
totally.
is there a different way as a child that you could have like experienced and created that?
It's hard to say. What we were just talking about a minute ago, this, so to speak, focusing on uh, the negative aspects with dad. But then there was also many moments where he was very open and receptive and welcoming conversations.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah, your father's not a villain and
yeah.
you turned out great. But I'm just saying, like, given the way your childhood was experienced, was there a different relationship? Like, this is a pretty predictable relationship to have created with feelings, right?
Hmm.
You've got a 7 month old. Does that little toddler, that little child, have the ability to kind of like understand what's happening through many different lenses and be like, oh, mom's just having a bad day? Does he have that capacity? Don't think about it too hard. Not really, right?
No.
He's not like a 40-year-old who's able to like pull this stuff apart and like assess it and understand it.
Yeah.
So your dad, who I trust was like doing his very best with the tools he had, and likewise your mom doing the very best with the tools she had, they were both taught by their parents, tried to do their best with you. And you inherited like all along that whole bloodline, right? That's where this stuff comes from, because that's what we were trained in, because that's what they were trained in. So I don't see like something stupid or something wrong or like a bunch of bullshit. I see just like something that makes a tremendous amount of sense. I see like a child who cared and really like felt the impact of having feelings dumped on him and concluded, I'm not going to fucking do that. Because the experience I'm in is that when feelings are shared, they're a burden and they're stressful and it takes away space from me. So, what I want to do, or what you wanted to do, was like give people space. Is this sounding fair?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is what you want to necessarily keep doing. This is just the context. I think you know that word. Like this is the way you learn to be because it was
Hmm.
essential to get through childhood and to here to today. So I'm curious, does that help you? Like, does that provide you any access to a little more compassion or grace for yourself around this strategy that's in place?
A little bit, yeah.
Sweet. Took a little bit of Mike being nice and easy on himself. maybe giving himself a break once in a while. Fuck's sakes. So can you see how the belief dictates the actions, and then the actions creates an experience, which then reinforces the belief?
Yeah,
Do you need some examples, or is it clear for you?
I'll take an example.
Sure. So you've got a belief that sharing your feelings is a burden and takes away space, like doesn't leave space for anyone else. Okay. And then some of the actions you've said you do as a result is like ignore your feelings, block your feelings, push your feelings down, compress your feelings, get busy with something, basically just shove the feelings down, right? Until they become this compacted neutron star, which then collapses in on itself and then explodes outwards. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
The volcano barf or volcano vomit or however you called it.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, does that create perhaps an experience for someone that when you're sharing your feelings, it's kind of burdensome and it creates stress and it takes away space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would that reinforce that belief?
Okay. Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah. Gotcha.
So this is how this stuff always works. It's what well-meaning but poorly trained coaches will do is they'll tell you it's just your story, dude. It's just a story you made up. And in the hopes that that will free us from this, which is kind of the intellectual game you're playing a bit with yourself, right? I don't need to actually believe this. It's just a story. That's what your brain is trying to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, because we create the reality of our story. Our story creates a truth, and then it's no longer just a story. There's evidence to back up the story. It's real. Our story is writ large or made real into the world,
Mm-hmm.
and then it perpetuates itself. That all making sense?
Yeah,
What's
totally.
going on for you in this moment?
Um, yeah, no, that makes absolute sense, and I never thought about this or anything else for that matter, um, in that full loop, so to speak.
Cool. What are you feeling in this moment?
Um, Still feeling heavy, a little weighted on the chest, and yeah, feels like a lot.
Great. So there's a heaviness, there's like a weightiness in your chest, and then there's like an experience of just like a lot. Like, would it be fair to say maybe like overwhelm or like just, oof, that's a lot for me to hold? Like at capacity?
A little bit.
Great. Nice work sharing that truth, sharing a feeling.
And
And
actual
that,
feelings.
what's that?
I said in actual feelings.
Yeah. And that can be really easy to dismiss because our head is like 50 miles down the road where we already should be in its mind's eye. You should be here. You should be able to share every aspect of your feeling. But Mike, what you're doing in this moment is practicing. You're sharing a feeling. And it doesn't matter if it's like vague or hyper specific, but the fact is that you're practicing. And that's how we become what we want to become, is we be it in the moment. So I really want to acknowledge you for your practice. To me, it doesn't occur as simple or easy or something you should be further along than you are. It occurs like really courageous practice. And I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So, what do you think might serve you to practice with what we've distinguished and what you've gained some insight into today?
I mean, I think really just what we started with and practice intentionally sharing once a day, like what are my feelings of the day and or moment. Um, and so like if I can narrow down on something that like the day um, could be a great place to practice and bring that out more.
Okay. So great. So like sharing something you're feeling, like sharing a feeling or whatever once a day as a practice.
Yeah, and
And
I
I
think
know.
just a part
Mhm.
of being more intentional about it and consistent and not like 10 times a day, not overwhelming
Right.
type of thing.
Starting small, going to the gym and lifting a little weight instead of going and
Yeah.
pushing 700 pounds or, whatever people that are strong do.
Yeah, and having the intention because obviously, yeah, doing it freely and openly and aimlessly has not been working.
Would it serve you to write these practices down?
Probably.
Cool. I can give you a moment. Tell me when you got it.
Okay.
Cool. So given everything you've distinguished here, you're going to probably have some resistance to doing that anyhow, right?
Probably.
Probably, yeah. So what structure might support you to overcome that resistance? What could you put in place to just help that not be something that fades into the background and just becomes easy to ignore?
Mm, don't know. That's the part where I always struggle.
Okay. So what do you do to like remember to do stuff currently?
Um, Usually put an alarm in my phone for the things that I have trouble remembering or that are important that I shouldn't forget.
Okay. Was that something that might support you to like have a daily reminder?
Maybe. I guess I could try it for more in the late afternoon, early evening when the work day is done and try it.
Okay. I love how optimistic you feel about that. Now, for everyone listening while Mike's writing that down, if we had more time, I would get curious about what's showing up for him with regards to that, because that's going to give us another point. Like, oh, there's a bit of a like catch there. It's not like, oh yeah, that'd be great. It's sort of like, yeah, I can give it a try. And our belief about how something will go will dictate how that something will go, as we've just discovered here. So I would bring some curiosity to that, but we also have to manage our time and be sovereign about our time and honor our clients' time. And so you're always going to see more stuff than you can work with. And we're moving Mike forward an inch rather than trying to hit a home run. Um, do you think it might serve you? This is just a curiosity slash suggestion to let your wife know, like, hey, I really want to practice sharing a little bit more of my feelings with you. And I want to do that once a week or once a day. Like, would it serve the two of you for you to practice, like to bring that forward?
Yeah.
You sure? You're not convincing me.
I'm writing it down as well.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Nice. Good man.
but yeah, it definitely would.
Cool. I have some freebies for you. You want some freebies? You don't have to generate these at all. I'm just going to give them to you.
Perfect.
Amazing, right? Fuck, finally,
I love
coach, finally do
freebies.
some work. So I have, these are two super simple ways that you can go a little bit further. The first thing is that in order to share our feelings, we have to feel them. So practice feeling your feelings 10% more than you currently do.
Gotcha.
You don't get to pick and choose which ones. So, for example, if you're at this Airbnb and you're like, frig, this sucks and I'm annoyed about this, then give yourself like 10% more of like, I'm going to feel my annoyance rather than trying to solve my annoyance. That'll
Gotcha.
develop your muscle, your ability to simply have feelings without having to solve them, compress them, push them down, do anything like that. Nice,
Okay.
easy. And let yourself feel 10% more of the joy. Fuck yeah, I made a dope trade. That was super smart of me. I'm going to feel good about that for 10% longer, or I'm going to allow myself to feel it in my body 10% more. The other practice is to start, like if you're struggling with your partner and you're like, I don't know what to share, or I'm having a hard time letting it out, you can start by sharing your feelings of judgment about your feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Got it.
So that can kind of give us a way through. I learned kind of similar to you. I learned to be very numb to my feelings. I don't feel anything. Perfect, amazing lawyer technique. And so when I'm trying practices like this, when I'm working to go deeper into what I feel, often I'm frustrated because I'm in a practice of like, what do I feel right now? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not able to do it. The practice isn't working. So the way for me to start that is like, I feel numb. Numb is a feeling, just like judgment is a feeling. Fucking bullshit. That's a feeling. So you
Mm.
can start sharing that. I've got feelings and I'm judging them. And that's as much as I can share right now, but I want to share that with you, my love. And that is opening the door for a little more intimacy.
Mm.
So give yourself permission to share that. That can be a really beautiful practice. And as we do that, what I find in my own life, at least, is that that allows it's almost like my feelings are frozen in a glacier. And as I begin to feel the glacier starts to melt. And then the rest of the feelings can start to come forward, which I
Mm.
don't always like, but it allows me to feel more of what there is to feel. Cool. Anything there for you to share or speak to before we wind down and go to our debrief that would have our conversation today feel complete?
No, I'm feeling pretty complete here.
Cool, man. I want to acknowledge you to finish up. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Mike, I really acknowledge you for being a man with a huge, tender, beautiful heart. I really get that might not be the way you necessarily experience yourself, or maybe might not judge yourself that way. But what I'm present to is like big, big hearts build big, big walls. And so I
Mm.
acknowledge the depth that you feel. I acknowledge the tenderness with which you love and feel. And then I acknowledge the brilliance that was required to create this sort of structure to kind of protect yourself and others. And then lastly, I really acknowledge the courage that it takes to be willing to like start to let these walls come down a bit and to like let yourself feel the full depth of which you feel. You know, there's like an ocean in there. It's not a little trickle. There's an ocean of feeling, and that's scary. That's a scary thing to slowly start to pull this stuff apart and dismantle it so that we can have like a more fully expressed and fully experienced life. I really see you doing beautiful, profound work. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your time and efforts and being here with me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Well, let's debrief a little bit. I don't know how much we'll have, but like, so what I'd love to hear, like maybe sort of your expectations versus where we went. Like, did you have a particular, like, this is how it's going to go or look versus like where we showed up? Anything along those lines for you?
Um, no, I
Ah,
was very open. And, um, I would say a little bit optimistic without any idea of any end result. As I said, I met you 4, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was. Um, and you were the conversations we had, you were just extremely insightful and saw, so to speak, right through me, or saw things very differently than anybody. And so, yeah, I know you're extremely intuitive, and um, I know you're great at I know you're amazing at what you do with your coaching and stuff. So, yeah, I didn't have any expectations on the results, but I was optimistic of at least getting somewhere.
mm, that's cool.
And
6 years
wherever
ago,
we
I
got
sucked.
what, wherever we got, whatever, there's something to be discovered. Um,
Uh, Thanks for seeing me as you do. It's neat. It's neat to hear that because, I've one of the parts of my essence is brilliance. And so I learned to rely on my head a lot. You might be able to relate to this. Instead of trusting, instead of like feeling, I just thought. Very effective. Makes you very like kind of robotic, but robots are efficient. You can get stuff done. You can figure things out, can solve for patterns, all of that stuff. And where that led me was this deep story and a corresponding then experience made real about myself that I was not intuitive. And like my best friend, he has a lot of wisdom and he's just super intuitive. Like he'll pick up a video game and it'll just be kind of good at it. He can play sports, he's kind of good, he's just intuitive towards all that stuff. And so he was like my foil. I was always like, oh man, Graham's so intuitive and I'm not. I have to figure everything out. And what I love about what you just saw in me and acknowledged me for is like that's the product of all of this work that I've been up to, or some of the work in my life is to like dismantle like running everything to the brain and like letting my heart feel. And I'm discovering, I find like, man, the more we let our heart feel, the more our intuition can exist. Super, super cool. So thanks for that scene.
yeah,
I
and what
was
you just said is exactly what I felt and experienced when we met 5, 6 years ago.
yeah. Uh-huh. I was it's cool because you talked about thoughts and feelings with my partner, and where we started was you kind of not being sure like what's the result to create. Like we didn't have a direction to go towards. Remember that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like inside my head, I was kind of wondering like, I wonder if this will be a conversation where what we're really doing is supporting Mike to ask for what he wants, or is this actually going to be a conversation about what he feels? Because if we can't even say like I want to be able to share this once a day, or whatever it happens to be, then that's where the conversation has to meet us, because until we can ask for what we want, we can't be given what we want. And then
Mm-hmm.
a lot of coaching conversations happen absent that, but what they're basically doing is the coach trying to like stuff value into you. That never works. And it's an unpleasant sensation. Cool. Mike, is there anything you want people to know about you? Like anything you're up to that they should find out about or anything along those lines?
Um, One thing I thought about before our call, and I believe you're familiar with one or both, Bob Collins and Alex Terranova. So actually, every Wednesday, I'm part of a men's group that they
Mm,
do. So meets every Wednesday for an hour. It's a group of men. There's a topic each month. Like this month is integrity, if I have that correct. Um, and each week there's a subtopic on that where they speak for 2 or 3 minutes on the topic, and then after that you can either talk about the topic or anything you want, or you don't have to talk at all, where we can get out our thoughts and feelings and just have real conversations, deep conversations, to express ourselves, which is extremely beneficial, especially for those most resistant to it. And it's just a space of men where it's much easier to do that. It's welcomed. It's a space for it.
Aha.
So I want to give a shout out to Bob Collins and Alex Terranova. And if anybody wants to reach out to you and then me or them to get more information on that, it's a great space for men.
I've just put their, I've tagged them in the comments and put their
Cool.
names in there. So if anyone's curious, they're awesome guys. I know Bob very well. I don't know Alex quite as well, but and Bob's had a really inspiring journey through this stuff too, like taking a child who was born very, 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 very premature, and like all of what he went through with his wife and the two of them supporting that. They became basically international news celebrities for a period of time. And so awesome, awesome guy. I love how Bob's totally like a lumberjack too. He's very lumber sexual as far as men go.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. What do I want to share? I want to share about the intensive. So if you like this kind of conversation, if you want to know how to lead people in this kind of conversation or just get more of this kind of work in your bones, be in the experience of it and get to like move through some of this stuff, distinguish some of this stuff, that's what we're going to be doing at the intensive. So that happens May 29th through May 31st. It's here in Victoria, British Columbia this May, which is just going to be unbelievably beautiful. I've got like blue skies out here. It looks gorgeous already, and it only gets better from here. So Bay and I are running that event live. We're going to do a whole bunch of fun stuff, hang out on the water, go deep together. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm just going to put the link to it here in the old chat, and I'll also say it out loud for people. It's evergrowthcoaching.com the hyphen intensive. Yes, that's right. I had to make sure I was spelling right as I was also speaking. Too many things. All right, Mike. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I hope everyone enjoyed this chat. I hope y'all come and hang out more. And that's it for this week. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye, y'all. And then, Mike, you get to
Awesome.
stay here while I stop this live stream. Bye,
Sure.
everyone.